Enquanto os colegas do senhor Peter Marques falando, bem-vindos a mais um Assistindo Porcaria, mas posicionamento ridiculamente questionável de webcam 2, dia 23 de 2 de 2025, domingo hoje. Isso não foi legal, peraí, deixa eu ajustar o direito da câmera, aqui. Não sei não, tem aqui, não, peraí. Vai pro lado do lixinho, porcarias e tudo. Então, peraí. Essa parte tá muito idiota. Eu estou brigando com o posicionamento da webcam, caralho. Não. Não, é pra. É pra focar no resto do quarto, fera. É pra focar aqui em mim. Deixa eu ver uma coisa. Ficou muito alto. Acho que assim tá bom. Isso aqui é o cabo do headset. Ó. Ó, espelho lá. Espelho. Dessa vez eu não tô me vendo o reflexo apenas na câmera. É muito questionável que tipo, ela tá no canto aqui assim da mesa. Então, quem que mexeu nisso? Pera aí. Esse aqui é o armário onde eu guardo meus bonés e bolsas. E sapatos. E mais algumas coisas como, por exemplo, isso aqui. Isso aqui não era pra estar lá, na minha opinião. É meu hidratante de mãos com cheiro de café. Aqui tem parte do meu corpo. Tô meio que precisando. Nossa, cheiro bom. Aqui. Ai. É, eu tô passando hidratante no pé, só pra deixar bem claro que tá acontecendo agora. Bom, de certa forma, quem vai estar assistindo porcaria aí é quem assistir só a live ou o VOD depois, né? Ó, cena magnífica que isso aqui é. Ó. Tirar aqui o excesso da mão. Agora, vou fazer um negócio aqui rápido. Cabelo não ficar me incomodando, bater toda hora no olho. E vai que você consegue fazer isso aqui todo dia. Aqui. Tirar uma bocada. Talvez tenha esquecido de alguma coisa. E agora eu percebi que eu esqueci de pré-abrir, vai demorar um pouquinho pra abrir o Google pra gente ver a porcaria no YouTube. Haja, né? Ô Zé Burraldo aí. Tem que esperar agora o negócio abrir. Impressão, a câmera tava mostrando. Ela tava nessa posição. Ai, meu Deus do céu. Não, não, não. É pra ficar. É se. Pronto. E. Deixa eu. Pronto, ajustar o. Colocar o negócio onde ele devia estar. Já. O Google já tá funcionando para poder abrir o YouTube para ver porcaria. E vamos ver se o Zé Burraldo não esquece de novo de trocar a câmera, a posição da câmera aí. Isso aqui me parece interessante, ó. Então o negócio parece muito legal aqui. Caralho, 6 horas. Nossa.
Seu verão fica melhor com a Shopee. Compre agora, chega amanhã. Olha na Shopee.
Ninho Primeira Infância. O eu te amo que protege na fase da imunidade.
House How's it going, dudes? American football. Some say that it's the greatest sport on earth. Others say that it is unmatched by every other form of competition. But really, truly, we all know that all American football is God's gift to mankind. With a sport this popular in exactly one country, football pretty much commands the brain space of a good chunk of the American population for half of the calendar year. And for some of those fans, no other level of the sport can really compare to the spectacle of college football. College football has a much different appeal to the pros, mostly due to how the quality of teams across the FBS are all over the place and how the players on their team have a max number of eligible years before they are kicked out. But what happens when you get a fan so transfixed by the sport's appeal that they decide to do the unthinkable? Combine their jock hobby with their nerd hobby despite the ancient warnings. The result is a box that weighs 10 pounds. This is Envelopes of Cash, the Eurogame based around American college football. Specifically, the part where you recruit players to play for your team, specifically the part where you illegally pay players to play for your team. Lost already? Boy, you are in for a rough one today, buddy. Before the stop anyone? Brother, they bought Eric Dickerson a gold players to play for your team. Lost already? Boy, you are in for a rough one today, buddy. Before the enactment of name, image, and likeness, paying college players to play for your school was very much against the rules, to the point where sanctions would be placed against offending schools to dissuade others from trying any funny business with their recruiting efforts. Did this stop anyone? Brother, they bought Eric Dickerson a gold Trans Am called the Trans A&M. The enforcement committee was practically wearing blindfolds. This period is where Envelopes of Cash takes place, tasking you with using every underhanded recruiting method at your disposal to bribe these high schoolers into carrying a ball in your colors. So what we're going to do today is put this bad boy through the ringer, rushing our way through our usual categories in order to answer one very important question. Will this game help your coach become a better recruiter? But before we go beast mode on this monster, I'd like to first thank Johnny Chin for managing to get me this title. Johnny runs the convention Game Market West, a tabletop game market where indie designers can showcase and sell their games to fans. Game Market West is a free-to-attend and fully indie production, allowing people to put out some really innovative and unique titles you wouldn't find anywhere else. Like a card game where you spread propaganda, a Rob Zombie horror game, a strategic tabletop rendition of Tag, and a ton of other crazy titles. In fact, Envelopes of Cash here was one of the games featured at last year's Game Market West. So if you're looking to get the jump on some truly unique offerings, that's the place to be. Alongside those, you also have the chance to meet up with some of the special guests, like Tom Lehman, designer of Race for the Galaxy and Ray's Arcana. Again, this is all on free admission, and the next Game Market West is this March 23rd in the San Francisco Bay Area. So go check out the website below and see all the crazy happenings they'll have going on there. Thanks again for making this all happen, Johnny. Now let's get back to today's mission of bribing children by jumping into EOC's design. Envelopes of Cash has decided to finally drop all pretenses and has conveyed the college football recruiting landscape as the military operation it has always been. This is best showcased by the game's map, which carries the aura of a war room centerpiece, partially helped out by the fact that this thing is absolutely massive. It barely fits on my table. If this thing has any more components, I am screwed. Also adding to the war room feel are the player calendars and mats, which each player will use to track all of the weapons at their disposal. Confound it! The map itself divides the United States into color-coded regions that you can attempt to recruit players from, with the more defined regions getting one solid color and the states that are in between these regions getting a blend of the two. I would like to give this game a few style points here on the map, as it is quite possibly the first game I have ever seen include American Samoa as a region you can visit, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I now need to take all of those bonus points away, because my boys in the high-mid state of Indiana have been brutally lumped in with Illinois as a border group, an action that is unforgivable. I do not make the rules, I just enforce them. The titular envelopes each come in a variety of colors that represent different bribery tools, ranging from bling, to clothes, to whiskey, to a car that just happens to appear in an athlete's driveway, to even paying off the player's relatives' bills if you're feeling particularly benevolent with your cheating. Other available tokens include the player positions you will recruit, the star rating of each player, and your player tokens and recruiting bus, color-coded of course. But no college program is complete without their coach, and no two coaches are the same. So you'll need to figure out what kind of coach you are by choosing from one of the available coaching archetypes. Each coaching style comes with their own benefit based on how they like to do their job, like the media favorite, the star polisher, or my personal favorite, the preacher and advisor. The last little tidbit I want to harp on is that in the rulebook, there are little blurbs throughout the pages that tell you when a mechanic was inspired by another title, which I think is a really neat touch. Honestly, apart from the front of the rulebook being mysteriously printed in 144p like I'm watching Sunday Night Football in 2008, this bad boy has some pretty stellar looking components, even with the stuff they didn't need to make, like the starting chain for whoever's starting the turn first. But no adorable and hilarious finger chain is going to be enough to bribe my seal of approval, as in order to achieve the age-old saying of look good, play good, we'll need to take a look under the hood of this bad boy and make sure that it really does play good. Bust open the rulebook and the first thing you see in big bold letters is this game for real? I swear, if I got hit with another Mirage, I'm gonna lose it. Before you can start the game, you'll need to set up the game board by assigning the recruits into their states like some kind of puzzle. Then the most recent victim of wage theft goes first. Looks like I'm up first once again, boy. Not so fast, Jerry. Guess who just lost $150 in unpaid overtime? No way! Construct your program by selecting your coach, color, bus, and whistle, and start your piece off in the home region that matches your color. I highly recommend making up your own team that you will be recruiting for, and since I picked orange, which is representing the South, you are now looking at the brand new head coach of the Montgomery High Tide. It is
Dor de cabeça. Chama quem é craque em resolver.
It is then up to each player to get their secret recruiting board, a list of players that their team needs the most in order to patch up some roster holes. For instance, my board is telling me that my defense special teams is the most atrocious thing to ever step on a field. So in order to get a score bonus, I need to go out there and get some of the best defenders on the market, like Joey Beauty and Michael Big Boy. If you think that these names are silly, I'd like to direct you to actual college football. Lastly, each player gets a group of cards featuring various bonuses that they can choose to use, with some cards going into the draft pool that may be taken from later. Did you get all that? Fantastic, now we can finally start the game! There are 12 months in the game to recruit in, and each month carries 4 phases for everyone to play through, starting out with drafting cards. Each turn will have a different starting player, indicated by this fat diamond chain, and that player will start off by dealing 2 cards to everyone else and 3 cards to themselves as a little bonus. In order, each player will then choose whether to add one of the cards to their calendar while sending the rest to the draft pool, or discard one of their cards to delay their move in hopes of a better card popping up in said pool. Important note that any card added to your calendar is not immediately active, only drafted, and will remain inactive until you pay for it with envelopes, which we'll get into later. After that, it's time to roll the dice and pay out wagers. Whoever holds the starting chain will roll all 6 of the dice, which will set up the next section. But before you can go there, you'll need to pay out all the wagers made on the Vegas section of the board. Gambling? Yes, the illegal recruiting board game also comes with an illegal gambling section because, I mean, you're already this far in, might as well bet on your team to earn a little on the side. We'll get into the intricacies of gambling soon. First, let's see how you get those titular envelopes so you can get your little gift-giving operation running. From the 6 dice that were rolled, each player is going to pick 2 that they are going to gain envelopes from. Multiple players can select the same die. And after that, they must choose one of 2 options. Option 1, you gain that die's number of envelopes in that die's color exactly that many months from now, counting the current month. Example, picking a green 5 in June means that you'll get 5 green envelopes in 5 months, so October. Option 2, you can gain half of that die's number rounded down in any of the other nearest 6 months. Again, with the green 5, you can take 2 envelopes in any month from June to November. You then move all the envelopes from this month on your calendar onto your player mat, and can finally start spending them on actions. And if that last rule managed to trip you up, buddy, you better lock in, because we're not getting any easier. There are 9 player actions that can be performed on your turn, which you can do in any order and as many times as you can afford, except for marketing and in turn. We've got 9 different actions to get through, so let's bulldoze our way through these as best we can. Action 1. Put 1 or more cards into play. Any cards already on your calendar can be activated by paying the required envelopes and sending it over to your player mat. Card effects cannot be used until they have been moved to the player mat, but you can move as many cards from the calendar to the mat as you want as long as you can pay the cost. Action 2. Trigger the effect of any card already in play. Once cards are on the player mat, their effects can be triggered if you meet their conditions. Certain cards can be triggered every turn if they carry that kind of effect, but others are either always active or only happen at the end, indicated by their symbol. Action 3. Trade envelopes of cash. If all you have are a bunch of fancy clothes, but the player you're recruiting won't budge without a bottle of Remy Martin Louis VIII whiskey, then you aren't out of luck. You can trade any 3 envelopes of any color and 1 booster buck to take one of your desired color envelopes. A terrible trade ratio, yes, but one that you're willing to pay if you're desperate, you leverageless fool. I didn't bring up booster bucks before, but these are the stacks of cash that your rich oil friends give you because they are fans of your school, and are mainly used for above-the-table activities. You get 7 of these to start the game, and they'll pop up sporadically from time to time. Action 4. Travel in your recruiting bus. In order to visit the recruits you want, you'll need to travel around the country in style, pulling up in front of their house in your dingy recruiting bus telling them to hop on in. You can move your recruiting bus to any connected dot or recruiting spot by paying 1 of any color envelope. Guess it's expensive these days, don't you know? For the first 9 months of the game, however, players will be granted free movement that they can use to get around, so be sure to take advantage of the free movement available before you start bleeding envelopes. Action 5. Pay a runner. Runners are your little underlings that will help get your bribes around the nation quickly. You can spend 1 booster buck to send envelopes to a recruit before your bus can get there, which will give you a head start when you try to recruit them. The envelopes you send through runners can only help get you closer to the recruiting total you need. A runner cannot recruit a player for you as they lack the crucial swag needed to close the deal. This means that if someone recruits a player that you sent envelopes to before you can get there, the envelopes you sent are lost. So be careful with how many minions you send out to do your bidding. Action 6. Sign a recruit. When your recruiting bus is on a recruit's location, you may sign him to your team by paying the required envelope shown on his token. Any previous runner envelopes that were sent count towards this total. You are able to recruit someone before, between, or after any of your bus's movements, but remember that once you recruit a player, all previous actions you made on that turn are locked in. This is because anytime you recruit a player, you must roll the value modifier die to see if they are any better or worse than you bargained for. Sort of like the gym bust system from College Football 25. This can really screw with the star ratings for some of these players. Being able to drop them as low as a 1-star water boy or raise them to the heights of the mythical 7-star prospect, the literal college GOAT. For the quarterback position, these people keep telling me that would be Tim Tebow, so do with that what you will. Once that player has declared for your program, you can take that player and the state token for yourself, and send any envelopes from other players' runners directly into the trash. Side note, if you are visiting a border state with 2 players still there, you can just recruit them both and make the most out of your trip if you can afford it. Action 7. Run a marketing campaign. Yeah, ads. Let's go ads. This is all above the table stuff here, paying regular money for regular commercials, the only action that wouldn't get you sanctioned in real life. To run one of these, look at the marketing chart and pay the amount of booster bucks needed to get the amount of stars you like. Simple as. Action 8. Gamble in Vegas. Oh yeah, now we're making some real money. You can spend 1 envelope of any color to place a bet on the specific number you think a specific die will roll next turn, and you can bet on as many numbers as you can afford. Get it wrong, lose it all. If it hits though, you will gain 1 booster buck and 2 envelopes of that die's color to use this month. A pretty payout since this is one of the few ways to earn bucks outside of cards. And Action 9, declare the end of your turn. Once you declare your turn over, it's over. You can take no more actions and you must discard all of your unused envelopes for this month. So if you have any left over at the end, you might as well go to Vegas and toss them on black to hope for a payout next turn. Once every player has taken their turn, the month will advance, with all players moving their whistle forward on the calendar to the next month and the player with the starting chain passing it on. Additionally, once you reach September, any unplayed cards still on a player's March calendar must be discarded, as they have now expired. This will continue to happen each month for any unplayed cards from 6 months prior, so make sure that you pay for those before they are gone forever. After the February turn is over, it is time for National Signing Day, where we get to see who among you had the best recruiting class. To determine your final score, take the star values of all your athletes, which you have been keeping track of all game, and add on any stars you get from your end of game cards, one last marketing campaign, and the bonus from if you manage to fill your secret recruiting board. Add on any regional and positional scoring bonuses for one last boost, and whichever player has the most stars has proved their recruiting excellence and gets a $1 million retention bonus from their program. And that is finally the end of the rulebook. The first rulebook. The first of 4. Yes, Envelopes of Cash comes with 4 different rule sets depending on how you want to play the game. The Standard Game, the Newbie Campaign, the Family Game, or the Cutthroat Campaign. I will not be going in depth with each of these, as otherwise this is going to run way long, but I will give you the gist of what each one offers. The Newbie Campaign, designed for those who have, quote, never played a game harder than Monopoly or Risk. Where does Oy Vey fall on that scale? The Newbie Campaign is legitimately something straight out of the scenarios from all those war games I covered, breaking the game into 2 smaller 6-month segments to get players familiar with all the mechanics before they tackle the full game, with one scenario focused on only recruiting with no cards, and the other focused on only cards and no recruiting. It is actually a really cool way to lead people into the title if they liked the theme but have never tried this style of game before, and does a great job explaining each mechanic as they come up. The Family Rulebook keeps the full game intact but alters the mechanics to make them easier to understand for a more casual audience. Some of these changes include simplifying the card draft system, removing the recruit modifier die, returning envelopes from runners if someone else gets the recruit, and allowing you to add the full value of an envelope die to any of the next 6 months instead of needing to split them in half. Overall, this will be a much easier experience to get through that will acquire a lot less brain power, so you can more focus on socializing or teaching your kids to play. So now that that's out of the way, let's look to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. The Cutthroat rule set, designed to test your skills, your patience, and the strength of your friendships. Instead of a whole new rulebook, the Cutthroat rules appear as suggested changes to the standard game to make it harder, taking the form of little blurbs dotted about. Some of the suggested changes include, when picking dice to gain envelopes, change to a draft style where each selection means the other players cannot use that die. Instead of trading 3 envelopes and 1 booster buck for 1 different colored envelope, you must now trade 3 envelopes and 2 stars. You know, the stuff you need to win the game. And my personal favorite, removing the free movement for the early months altogether, forcing you to pay for every time you move your bus. Yeah, you're gonna end up with a lot of hometown recruits because those are the only people you can afford to see. So with an extensive rule set, a unique theme, and some good components, this bad boy has a lot going for it. But all of that could pretty easily come crumbling down if it all falls apart once the game starts. So let's take a look into how the gameplay operates and see if it can keep up this rocket pace. The gameplay relies heavily on what strategy you choose to use and how well you can adapt to changing circumstances throughout your recruiting adventure. Most of your actions are going to revolve around getting as many stars as possible, which will mostly come down to your card playing and your recruiting. Navigating the chance factors of the game is also key, as any well-laid plan you might concoct will need a couple backups in case the dice don't roll your way or another player snipes a vital recruit. Since every game will vary based on how you choose to play it, let's go over two of the most common playstyles the game anticipates players to go for: the long-term lingerer and the short-term screecher. For a long-term playstyle, you'll be looking to take the full value of the envelope dice so that you'll be able to make a ton of moves in the later months. As you'll be poor for most of the early game, you'll want to take cards knowing that they won't be activated for a while, and you'll need to make the most of your free movement and your runners to get those cheaper recruits. In the meantime, save all of your big plays until you get to the months where you are loaded. Then go on an absolute tirade of destruction, leaving the other players' plans in shambles. If you're more of a short-term screecher though, then you'll want to take the high-numbered dice at half value so that you can use them right away, and draft some cheap cards so you can start getting their effects off now. With your early cash flow, try to recruit anyone you can reach with your free movement and send the remaining cash through runners to set up your next turn. No matter which strategy you choose though, you'll need to be thinking ahead, as rolling along by the seat of your pants is a good way to get steamrolled by a program that has actually put some thought into who they're looking for.
Dulcolax reativa o ritmo natural do intestino para alívio previsível e eficaz da constipação.
So with strategy aplenty and tons of different playstyles to choose from every game, the gameplay loop is likely to hold your attention and inspire you to come back and try a new game plan next time. But cool, it runs well. Yeah, so does your refrigerator. The most important thing about these games by far is our final category, as no matter how well put together your title might be, you're more likely to see me playing with a blender than a game that fails to be fun. The main draw from this title is how much thought goes into each of your plans and whether or not those plans are still going to work in 4 months. The start of the game will be moving quite slow, with honestly players being able to take their turns all at the same time with little to no issue. Once you hit June, however, everything changes. Players' plans will really start to intersect here, putting everyone at odds with each other as they try to compete for the limited pool of players. Needless to say, they'll be at each other's throats in no time. The slightest miscalculation from your opponent can seal their doom, and nothing is going to be more satisfying than stealing someone's 4-star linebacker one turn before they were finally able to snag him. However, this game is by no means easy, and requires a ton of thought and forward thinking that many people just might not want to go through the trouble of doing. As such, people who are looking to get engrossed into a game with the opportunity to outthink, outwit, and outstrategize their friends are likely going to have a good time with this one. If you're like me and your favorite part of College Football 25 is the recruiting, then you're probably the exact type of person this game was made for. For those that won't enjoy their time here though, I'm thinking those that sit down with a board game in order to relax. Less looking for something that is going to challenge their decision making and more just looking for a stress-free experience that'll give them a good time. There are easier rule sets in the game that will make the title more appealing to these groups, but these will still require some effort in order to learn. So if this just isn't your game, it's not your game. And that should round out everything that's contained in these envelopes. So with all of that covered, it is time to answer... What's this? Mr. President, there's been a 5th rulebook. Tucked away hidden in the back of the family rules is a hidden 5th rule set for a completely different playstyle. As if you either can't convince your friends to play or never had them in the first place, then you can still enjoy the game using the solitaire rules. Yes, you are able to play EOC completely alone, whether that to be to practice for upcoming games or as a sort of challenge mode to test your skills. Because when playing solitaire, you are going to be facing off in a recruiting bout against the most fierce competitor in these United States, Bubba. Bubba is quite literally a recruiting machine, being a bot that you operate which follows a specific set of rules. Bubba only plays as the team from the South, and in his bio it states that he lives by the motto, always be crutin', and that he does not believe in much else. Yep, you've got your work cut out for you. To make the game functional in a one-player state, some rules have needed alterations. For instance, there is no more draft pool as there's no one to draft against. Bubba doesn't believe in cards. You are the only player that uses the envelope dice because Bubba doesn't believe in chance. And free movement has been completely eliminated like in the cutthroat rules because I'm not sure that Bubba can move. Other than these changes, you will conduct your turn as normal, moving, recruiting, gambling, until you run out of things that you can do. Once that happens, buddy, you better brace yourself, because now, it's Bubba's turn. Once Bubba's turn starts, he gets up, does his early morning routine to get ready for the day, and immediately recruits the highest star athlete in the southern region. My man is a bona fide hypnotist. He got this job by walking up to the previous head coach and just talking him out of it. He's never coached a game in his life. These stars are immediately added to Bubba's score without rolling the recruit modifier die. Remember, Bubba doesn't believe in chance. And if he has already recruited every athlete in the whole of the southern United States, he just recruits someone from one of the border regions instead. You are never safe from being recruited by Bubba, it's just a matter of how long it will take him to get to you. Bubba will think of which positions he hasn't recruited and how scarce position recruits are when selecting his target. After which he'll stumble in, get them to verbally commit within minutes, then waddle away to reinforce his defense. The only advantage that players have is that Bubba won't recruit from any non-border regions that aren't the South. We tried to ask him about why he does this, but all he said was that it is out of principle, and then he wouldn't talk to us anymore. Needless to say, competing against Bubba in a recruiting battle requires you to be at the top of your game with little room for error, as the game explains that we should expect Bubba to earn at least 150 stars, with the possibility of him getting as many as 200 if he's having a pretty good day. You are going to have to make 1987 SMU look like a world's finest chocolate fundraiser. The man is a force of nature. But with our nightmares left behind us, I believe that that is the last thing that we have to investigate. So with all of the categories covered, we can finally answer the question that we posed way back at the start of the video: will this game help your coach become a better recruiter? The official ruling? About as much as Road to the White House will help you win an election. Better than doing nothing. This game is so cool. The theme is awesome, the board is awesome, the content is awesome. Every part of it screams that this was made by someone who really respected what they were adapting here. Not the illegal recruiting part, the college football feel of it. It also serves as a great reminder of how far things have come. Since athletes are now able to be paid for the services they provide, these under-the-table offerings have fallen to the wayside to make way for a much more transparent system, albeit one with plenty of kinks that still need working out. Hey, any system that makes Hoosier football not a complete joke gets a thumbs up from me. I really like this game. If you've got a crew that is able to sit down and appreciate a title like this, I'd love to hear what people think of it, especially since it's not as tricky to get a hold of as some of the older titles I cover, since they are still selling it on their website. I'll put that down in the description if you want to take a look at it, as well as the link to Game Market West if you want the opportunity to see some other indie games not featured anywhere else. I think that's all that we have time for tonight, so I'll leave my more athletic viewers in the South with a lesson that they had best learn good and quick. If the people in your town start whispering about a man named Bubba coming through, well, you might as well pack your bags, buddy, because he's got an offer for you. Signing off for Parcels of Pesos, I am Cam Sandwich. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at
Quando você conecta seu alarme Verisure, sua casa fica protegida contra roubo. Protegemos todos os acessos.
Did you get everything you wanted for Christmas? Well, if you didn't, why don't you try this? Just take out a billboard and ask the whole world for it. For example, all this man wanted for Christmas was a Latina girlfriend. And if you or someone you knew were a potential Latina girlfriend, you could email Mark at christmaslatina@aol.com. How do you think that worked out for him? You might be surprised. In fact, a lot of things about this guy might surprise you. For today's video, let's take a look at Mark Paskin, a millionaire who knew exactly what he wanted. This video is sponsored by Helix. Helix makes premium mattresses and bedding custom fit to your needs and shipped straight to your door. Everyone sleeps differently, so Helix has you take a sleep quiz to match your body type and sleep preferences. I'm a side sleeper, so Helix set me up with a Sunset mattress. To make more money to make rich is that people make it the very wealthy. Right now for a limited time, and they're offering my followers an exclusive discount this month, 27% off your mattress purchase. There's a lot of criticisms that people make of the very wealthy. You're probably familiar with most of them. Me personally, my biggest criticism of the rich is that they just always seem to spend their money in the most boring ways possible. Like, screw making another company to make more money, to make another company to make more money. Why don't you build a palace? Not even a palace. What if you built a mansion that was full of needlessly complicated traps? What if you made a device to block out the sun? Or alternatively, if you don't want to be evil, what if you just used your wealth to fill the world with silly little bits for your own amusement? Well, allow me to introduce you to Mark Paskin, the millionaire behind this billboard and many others like it. Although he'd been successful for quite some time, Mark first steps into the spotlight in 2011 when he appears on the reality show The Secret Millionaire. Like most American reality TV, it was adapted from a British show. The general concept was that a millionaire would temporarily leave behind their life of luxury and live anonymously among a poor community, and they would have a very small budget while they did this. In Mark's case, it was just $40 in a week. And then at the end of the show, they revealed to the locals that they'd actually been a millionaire this whole time, and they donate at least $100,000 to charities that they worked with. This episode begins with Mark, who was 61 years old at the time, telling us a bit about his backstory. He grew up in a poor family in Wisconsin and dreamed of living somewhere warm on the beach. After getting out of college, he took his life savings, which at the time was just $1,000, and he used that money to buy a duplex, which, goddamn, I cannot fathom buying a duplex for anything close to $1,000. But you know, this was several decades ago. Mark would flip this property and get into bigger and bigger investments over the course of 30 years, until his real estate business was worth several millions of dollars. And after that, he got his beach house. He also told the story of his wife of 28 years, Marcia. She had been with him since the days when he was poor, and had passed away due to diabetes. He then found himself at this point where he was single, his kids were growing up, and he was in this big house all by himself. And he asks, what's even the point of having all this money? So he decides he'd enjoy it more if he just gave it all away. During his time in Detroit, he was tasked with finding local organizations that were making a difference in the community. He found 3 such groups. The Man Network, which was a sort of neighborhood watch that made sure kids could get to school safely. Young Detroit Builders, who trained young Detroit residents to rebuild homes. And Really Living, who provided transportation and financial support to sick people without health insurance. It seemed like each group genuinely made an impact on him, but he was moved to tears when in the course of working for Really Living, he met a dialysis patient named Courtney. She was a 24-year-old mother whose daughter also had severe health problems. In addition to the donations he gave to each of these organizations, he would also, somewhat to the surprise of production, give Courtney a personal check for $20,000. which was beyond what the show required of him. After the episode aired, Mark did an interview with the San Diego Union Tribune, and they asked how he got involved in the show. Why did you agree to become a secret millionaire? The producers of Secret Millionaire heard about me and my involvement with charities and contacted me. After learning about the show, I liked it. I was already helping needy people and charities. The only difference was they would be following me with a camera. Plus, I'm a ham. I thought it would be fun to be on TV. And it seems like perhaps with this experience, he caught a bit of a bug that would forever alter the course of his life. Although clearly those seeds had already been planted somewhat, as he mentions he's an Elvis impersonator too. In fact, you can see a video of him on YouTube at the Elvis convention in New York, where out of 2,000 Elvi, he apparently won the worst Elvis impersonator award. He concludes the interview by saying, "When I die, no one will be at my funeral talking about my cash flow or how many properties I own, but they will be talking about my heart and how I use my success to help others in need. Giving back, helping others, to me that is success, not the size of your bank account." In the interview, he also mentioned that he'd been receiving a lot of requests for help since the show aired, and he wanted to do as much as he could, but he couldn't help everyone. This situation would eventually be channeled into a TV show of his own. On April 18th, 2012, Mark Paskin returned to TV with his new show, Uncle Kokua. The show took place in Hawaii and aired on local Hawaiian television, where he lived part of the year. The concept was that his assistants would help him go through all the requests for help, and they'd debate about and ultimately decide on who should get the help. This was a concept that he'd revisit for a number of holiday specials. But Mark Paskin's most well-known exploit would come in the months following the debut of Uncle Kokua. That December, in San Diego's Barrio Logan, which the San Diego website describes as the epicenter of the city's Mexican-American culture, Mark would erect his infamous billboard. "All I want for Christmas is a Latina girlfriend. Email Mark, christmaslatina@aol.com. This whole thing aesthetically just has a vibe that I can only think of as being like a cross between Happy Birthday Rakesh and Jerry the King Lawler's Instagram posts. It's very quickly posted to r/WTF by a Reddit user named Mexican Milky Way, and you get some commenters who are a bit tempted to message him. I can message him, "For science, I'm Latina and over the age of 21 and live in San Diego, but at what cost? For science. Do it, he's rich." That user actually did wind up emailing him. A lot of people also expressed shock at seeing an AOL email address in modern times. Some co-signed his interest in a Latina GF, while others of course found it creepy or offensive. And it's so funny to think about the difference in how you'd perceive him if you saw him first on TV versus how most people saw him first on that billboard. Like, on one end, you have this kind, selfless old man who's literally brought to tears seeing other people struggle, versus this billboard that's got the vibe of an OnlyFans reply guy brought into real life. The billboard would go on to get a lot of news coverage, with outlets clarifying his identity and his past on reality TV. 4 days later, the billboard would be vandalized with his email address torn off. Some said it was rowdy kids that did it, while others assumed that it was locals who were offended by this. In any case, soon after the whole thing was removed, and after it was taken down, Mark Paskin released a statement. "Last Thursday, the story of my billboard went worldwide. On the internet, TV, and newspapers. My only desire was to meet someone here in San Diego, but in the past 4 days, I have received over 15,000 emails from women that want to meet me from all over the US and all over the world. Vandals took down the board, and I decided not to put it back up. I don't need any more emails. Everyone has a right to find love and happiness. I just went about it in a different way. It is a success beyond my wildest dreams. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Feliz Navidad." Due to the nature of this strange public ordeal, a lot of people thought that maybe this was some kind of viral marketing for another TV show, but no such show ever emerged. So it seemed like he probably actually was using the billboard to really find a Latina girlfriend. 15,000 potential Latina girlfriends is a lot to go through though. And surely of those 15,000, a lot of them are not serious. But perhaps some of them were. Did Mark actually succeed in finding a Latina girlfriend through his billboard? The truth wouldn't be known until a few years later. That would be in 2015. Denver, Colorado got a new radio DJ. Gary Ganja, the host of Smokin' 94.1. Don't be fooled by the wig, guys. Gary Ganja is, of course, Mark in disguise. He had just purchased a local radio station that he called K-Bud for $875,000 and invested $1 million total into this project. And on the station, he would play a bunch of weed-themed music and stuff like Cheech and Chong clips. Matthew T. Hall of the San Diego Union Tribune would catch up to him once again and ask, why? It's not for money, he answered. It's not for marijuana. It was to recreate a radio station of the past that was fun and off the wall, and people love it. And then we find out the answer to the Latina girlfriend question. The 66-year-old said he wanted to retire last year after a wildly successful 35-year career in real estate. He wanted to spend more time with his children and grandchildren, and his similarly aged girlfriend, a semi-retired paralegal and Latina, whom he met, yes, via one of his 15,000 emails from his Barrio Logan billboard solicitation. And as for the question of why make a weed radio station out of nowhere at the age of 66, he said that he just asked himself, what would you like to do that had nothing to do with money? And he came up with the weed radio station. In the years following, he would occasionally pop up in the news from time to time with various charitable things, such as in 2018 when he gave money to help reunite migrant children separated from their parents. Most recently though, in August of 2024, Mark came back with another billboard. We don't need another president, we need a king. Vote Mark Elvis Paskin, Independent. He was running for president as Elvis.
We don't need another president. We need a king.
Because I love you too much, baby.
After I'm elected, I'm going to change the name of the White House to the Heartbreak Hotel. And Donald Trump will be doing the Jailhouse Rock.
He didn't win this time, but there's always 2028. And that's the story of the man who wanted a Latina girlfriend for Christmas. If you like this video, turn on notifications and check out my video about the God Warrior. I'm out.
Princípio.
People like to talk about how much they hate reality TV, but honestly, I think reality TV got kind of a bad rap. Like, they weren't my favorite thing in the whole world, but they were enjoyable enough for what they were. What I found much more obnoxious than reality TV itself is all these big-brained intellectuals who are like, why come they call it reality TV because it's not reality? I don't know, maybe it's because nobody feels like sitting around watching a show where you stare at a screen all day long and maybe chuckle once every 20 minutes. Like, these shows weren't trying to be Citizen Kane, they were basically wrestling for soccer moms. But I watch them too sometimes, despite not being a soccer mom. And among the best were two virtually indistinguishable shows, Trading Spouses and Wife Swap. The show where you trade your wife with a family whose values are completely incompatible with yours and see what happens. And in 2005, Trading Spouses introduced us to one of reality TV's most iconic figures.
She's not a Christian!
One of the most popular memes of that time.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly!
For this episode of Tales from the Internet, let's take a look at Marguerite Perrin, the God Warrior. This video is sponsored by Displate. Displate makes these really nice posters that are made out of metal, and they had me order a few of them. I got these really cool skulls, more skulls, because I still have the aesthetic taste. True pimpin'. By the mid-2000s, reality TV had been around for a while and had more or less completely taken over primetime television. It was clear that the genre wasn't going anywhere. Everywhere you looked, there was another Joe Millionaire, Hell's Kitchen, 9911, and of course, Trading Spouses. Trading Spouses had a very successful first season, and they were promising to start season 2 off with a bang. For the weeks leading up to November of 2005, we'd see promos showing off the craziest rant you've ever seen on TV.
Get the hell out of my house. In Jesus' name, I pray.
A rant that would haunt the internet for years to come.
She's not a Christian.
And these promos were our first glimpse of Marguerite Perrin, the God Warrior. The first installment of the two-part season premiere airs on November 2nd of 2005. It begins by showing the Perrins, a family of devout conservative Christians led by the domineering, but generally affable matriarch, Marguerite. She would be going to live with the Flisher family, a very hippie, new agey, spiritual family. In other words, the perfect contrast to what Marguerite was used to. And at first, things seemed like they were going pretty well.
I was praying for Mary, Jesus, and Joseph to help me. And you look like Jesus, so I'm comfortable.
But then, accompanied by creepy music, she takes in all of the horrible sights. The mandalas, the pentagram, the gorgiles. Meanwhile, while staying with the Perrin family, Jean tries to avoid any contentious religious topics. This comes apart as soon as she's interrogated by Marguerite's friends.
You're not a Christian, in other words. No, I believe in God, but I'm in a spiritual... Do you believe in God, or do you believe in a higher power?
Meanwhile, Marguerite's discomfort grows as she's made to participate in what she believes to be some kind of ungodly ritual. And the whole thing comes apart as soon as she's introduced to a psychic.
Tristan is a psychic.
Psychics!
And note that before every single commercial break, we're treated to bits and pieces of the God Warrior rant. These reality TV producers really knew how to string people along. So the next episode finally comes along, Marguerite and Jean meet each other.
Please, put God in your heart. I need to figure things out and talk to Chris. There's a lot of things that happened that I'm angry about.
Note that the Flishers have since gotten divorced. And then finally, we're treated to it. The meltdown that spawned 1,000 memes, such as...
She's not a Christian!
And...
Dark-sided stuff!
And...
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly!
And...
I give it up to God! I'm a God warrior! I am a spiritual warrior because I'm the warrior. I'm the one that's the warrior. Why can't you be the warrior?
Punctuated by her ripping up the check, and then deciding to keep the money after all for gastric bypass surgery. These episodes would be the highest rated episodes in the history of the show. Memes, remixes, and clips wound up everywhere online, and at some point it completely took over YTMND.
God warrior! God warrior! Christian! Gargoyle! Psychics! I'm a God warrior!
But as is often the case with these things, some people couldn't leave it at just memes. People found out where the Perrins live and started to show up at their house, causing them to have to call the police several times. They also found out their phone number and started prank calling them, mostly by doing impressions of Marguerite. Although I wasn't able to find any recordings of these calls, one report says that she responded to at least one of them by telling her side of the story. She claimed that the show was edited in such a way to make it look way worse than it was. And in general, she said that she mostly got along with the Flisher family. Of course, all the nice moments didn't make the final cut because it didn't suit the narrative. In an interview with the LA Times, Marguerite described what it was like to watch the episode once it finally aired. When my family watched the show this last week, instead of seeing the humor that everyone else saw in all the Psycho Mom, they cried. I didn't cry at my party, but I cried when I got in my bed because it was very sad to me to see me so upset. It was very sad for the world not to see Marguerite Perrin happy because my friends and family know me like that. And although obviously the big God Warrior rant did happen, and there were times at the Flisher's home where she was very obviously unhappy and uncomfortable, it is clear that the producers ramped up certain aspects of the shoot for the sake of the narrative, as is the case in much of reality TV. For instance, there's the one scene where Marguerite is merely standing on the porch looking around, but they intercut it with creepy music of all the imagery, the gorgiles, dark-sided stuff. Or the part where they show her tossing and turning in bed and they're showing some kind of nightmare she might be having. And while there were a few nice moments that did make the final cut, it's likely that there are many more that we just didn't see. In any case, she did eventually lean into the meme. At some point, a company named TalkingBobbleheads.com sold a bobblehead of Marguerite on eBay. Marguerite had seen the listing and loved the toy so much that she took a picture with the listing, autographed it, and mailed it to its creator. She would later be gifted this bobblehead by Jay Leno when she appeared on The Tonight Show. She would also launch the official God Warrior website, which promoted her music. Yes, Marguerite Perrin made 2 music CDs, one of them being her single, Marguerite, Why Can't You Be Sweet?
Marguerite, why can't you be sweet with the gap in your teeth?
You're not a Christian!
Marguerite.
And this song was a part of her full-length album, Sit Down Comedy. I was not able to find the tracks on Sit Down Comedy anywhere except for MySpace, but apparently this album contained 4 musical tracks and 3 spoken word storytelling tracks. And with Marguerite getting Trading Spouses' all-time highest ratings and her maintaining some degree of her popularity, the producers of Trading Spouses thought that maybe they should bring her in for the 3rd season again.
Neve Supreme, o conforto da folha tripla com textura acolchoada 3D. Cuidado e maciez inconfundíveis.
As one of the producers put it, we felt Marguerite was a very intolerant person, the producer said. Now, she says she's become more tolerant and patient. Let's test that. So for this episode, they decided to ramp up the racial tensions by placing Marguerite in the home of black activists.
Okay.
Right?
We can continue this another time.
You don't want to have this conversation no more?
I just don't want to have it
constantly. I can't help it. I'm black constantly.
Things got comically petty at times.
Why would I introduce somebody I consider my enemy to somebody I consider my friend?
I just want butter for...
You want me to go get you butter?
We got butter. Don't let this woman convince you we ain't got butter. She just want me to give her the butter. She trying to make a scene. I ain't going for her.
Despite this being a super tense, sensational episode, it didn't do the same kind of ratings that the first episode did, nor did it produce anything close to the original episode's memorable moments. A valiant effort, but basically forgotten to time. And not that long after the episode aired, the Perrins would be in the news once again, this time due to unfortunate circumstances. On September 27th of 2007, Ashley Perrin, Marguerite's daughter, was involved in a car accident. She passed away at the scene, leaving behind her 8-year-old daughter. Marguerite added a tribute to Ashley on her MySpace page, and on her website, she thanked people for their support. And this was the last that people heard from Marguerite for a very long time. That is, until June of 2019, when she made a very unexpected appearance at World Pride in New York City, cementing her status as an icon of the gay community.
The gay community.
Which I guess makes some kind of sense because as far as I can tell, the gays love reality TV. In an interview with Esquire, Marguerite spoke about how her daughter's passing put her in touch with the gay community. I have to tell you, I was in my bedroom. I was not getting out of bed for the longest time, she says. After her daughter's death, Perrin remembers that even some of her closest friends didn't know how to bring it up to her, so they just didn't. In their stead, the gay community stepped in. Co-opting her as an online viral icon, gay men reached out with condolences and notes and flowers. The gay community weren't scared to talk about me losing Ashley and saying I'm sorry to hear about that, she remembers. I was pretending like I was happy and I was okay. They would not leave me alone. You couldn't help but talk to them and be okay with them. The people that write those little memes do those little things. I love that. That's what got me out of bed after Ashley's death. And this past summer in New York, the gay community wouldn't leave her alone again, as Perrin exited a church in New York City. Spotting the group across the street, she remembers thinking, you can tell when somebody knows who you are. Just like this light goes off in their face. Not particularly interested in chatting with anyone, Perrin didn't go to them, but they came to her. The group quickly introduced themselves, saying, we wanted to tell you we are so happy to see you in New York, and we want to tell you we're very sorry to hear about your daughter Ashley. 12 years after the fact, they still remember, so Perrin asked for a hug. It's the people who turned her into a meme who also helped her heal. In the interview, she also mentioned that she's currently working on a new TV show. in this TV show, she's going to be placed in a variety of different uncomfortable cultural situations. Although it's yet to come out, I think maybe we are ready for a God Warrior comeback. Anyway,
bom, é isso e tchau. Pera aí, acho que tem um botão pra isso. Esquece.